Hey, how you doing? It's Clayton here from howtodrawcomics.net and the How to Draw Comics Academy. And what I'm going to be showing you in this video demonstration is the inner workings of a brand new app from the How to Draw Comics Academy that I've been working on, and I'm really excited to show you. In fact, I think that this particular tool is going to be revolutionary for every single comic book artist out there. Why? Because it's essentially a layout generator, as you'll see in just a moment. And don't worry, I'm not going to ramble on too much here. We're going to get straight into it. But the most powerful aspect about this tool is that it's going to save you a ton of time when it comes to laying out your comic book pages and get you drawing in the panels as opposed to trying to get those panels laid out on the page and working exactly the way you want them to, getting the guttering spacing absolutely correct. This tool keeps everything consistent. It allows you to set up the perspective grids to basically compose your page however you like, and it just takes the messiness out of it. That's what I love personally. And so, yeah, without further ado, let me get this thing up and running. It's really simple. Here it is here. There's my head. Cool stuff. You'll have to forgive me, I'm warming up. I'm warming up here. As I get into presenter mode. Let me just jump into the comments and say a big hello to everybody joining us in the live demonstration. We have Arcadian Comics, James Fondren. What's up, James? Great to see you here. We've got Corey Button. Hey, Corey, how you doing, man? Corey's been helping me test out this tool all month. It's pretty awesome. He's been giving me suggestions, in fact, on what to add and helping me to figure out where all the bugs are. And there still might be some, but I'm sure we'll smooth those out pretty quickly. We've got Michael Pedro in the chat. What's up, Michael? Good to see you here. We have Matt Nicola. So yeah, Matt and James, you guys are going to really enjoy trying this app out. We've got John as well. What's up, man? Great to see you here. Really awesome stuff. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. This is, yeah, something that I'm just totally stoked about. And, well, look, I can't wait to show you. So let's just do it. Okay, so let me walk you through this app. Comic page layout generator. It's actually pretty simple and straightforward. There's two different workflows that you can approach this with. If you're just working off of a script and you know how many panels you want on the page, then you can simply generate a layout based on those panels and then edit it after the fact. Or you can actually upload a thumbnail draft if you've got one drawn up and work straight over the top of it. So I'm going to show you both of these workflows. Let's first start with, the regular old script. Let's say that you've got a comic book page, standard US comic book page. We've got two options here, by the way. We have the European comic book page and we have the US standard. And by the way, when you export these page layouts, they're going to be ready to go. You can import them straight into Clip Studio Paint or Photoshop as separated layers. So if you've got your perspective grid set up in each of the individual panels, you can put those on a separate layer, adjust their opacity. It really is made for a smooth, seamless digital workflow for comic book artists. So we're going to go with US standard here. And let's say that in our script, we want a page of about 5 panels. Okay, we simply select the panel count there. Now, if you're using the app and you're unsure about what each one of these functions do, you can simply hover over the top and it'll tell you. But we're about ready to roll. Let's do it. Hit the generate button. It's going to take less than a minute to generate the layout. And there we have it. Pretty sweet, pretty standard. Now, if we don't like that layout, we can simply hit the generate button again. And it'll give us some new options. And you can hit this button as many times as you need until you find something that you kind of like. It doesn't have to be perfect, as you're about to see. This is just giving us a place to start. And that's what's so brilliant about it, is that it's all totally customizable. As I was designing this tool, I was thinking about myself as a comic book artist and what I really would need for this to be a tool that I could actually use myself. And I am indeed going to be using it. That's how good it is. And trust me, I've got a really high bar for this stuff. So once you've got your panel layout figured on the page, what you can do then is you can go down to panel styling. Okay, and what this allows you to do is allows you to adjust the boldness of your frames. So, I really like the standard. I think that that works well. And I actually, when I was designing this app, I took the page layouts and compared them to actual comic book pages that I know and love, such as Spawn and Witchblade. And I made sure that the boldness of those panel frames were accurate to what you'd expect to see in a professional comic book. So yeah, I would switch between probably, standard and thin. It's really up to you. We've got gutter spacing. Now, what you'll notice here is that we've actually got a pretty modern gutter spacing that we've applied to this page layout. And typically, the only difference between the modern way of setting these pages up and the Bronze and Golden Age era is that the gutter spacing was actually quite a bit wider. So if you wanted to go for that wider gutter spacing, we do have that there as an option. We've also got even narrower gutters if you'd like to apply that. So that's pretty sweet. But what I'm most excited about within this app is the guides, right? Because I used to have to manually draw this stuff up to figure out, what my composition was going to be. But now we have the print guides around the outside of the page, which you can switch on. And it might be a little bit hard to see there. They're only lightly drawn in, but it essentially indicates where your live area is, so where the safe space is inside your page to draw, and where the area of the page is going to be where it will get sliced off during printing. So the trim. Pretty awesome stuff, right? To have that there as an indicator. And it's all set up for you, so you don't have to guess, right? Like, I remember when I was working on Kozor, Descent into Madness, the comic book that Corey and I kickstarted a few years ago now, we were like just guessing, basically. We would have to jump onto the Mixam website in order to find the actual proper templates and guides on there, and then we'd have to kind of manually do up these guides and figure out what I would have to do in order to get these gutters right is I would have to create basically a template, like a block that was roughly a gutter distance apart, and then I would have to place that throughout the page to make sure the gutters were all consistent. Not a problem anymore with this layout editor. And then we've got the rule of thirds. So isn't that amazing? Check that out. We've got freaking thirds overlays. This is something I'm really excited for. I don't know about you guys. And if you want to check to see if your page is actually flowing correctly, you can turn this on, show page flow. It's just a rough indicator to see how the user's eye might flow throughout the page. Now, on more complex layouts, it can get a little confused, but for the most part, it works pretty well. So yeah, if you need that, if you're trying to figure out whether or not your page layout is reading correctly, this is a really handy tool. We'll switch that off for now. Now, it gets even better than this. Okay, we haven't even started here, right? Because down in interactive editing, this is where stuff gets good. So, we've got a pretty good page layout. Like, you could take this and you could draw something into these panels and it will be a really nice, neatly set up page layout. But maybe it's not exactly what you want. Well, guess what? We can go over here to tools like gutter dragging and we can reposition these gutters. Okay, so we could put that one over here. We could pull this one down here, maybe make this panel a little thinner or a little thicker, really anything you want. And then beyond that, we can actually go to panel merging. So say that, well, I've changed my mind. I don't really want this to be a 5-page setup. A 5-panel page setup. I actually want to merge these two together. Well, I can get rid of some of these gutters. Check that out. Boom. But then maybe I want to add some more gutters in. Well, check this out. We've got this nifty little slicing tool that allows you to divide these panels up vertically and horizontally as many times as you want. And so you can take what might start out as a 5-panel page layout and then turn it into 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 panels if you want to. And yes, all of these gutters can then be dragged around and edited, and yeah, I mean, the options are endless here. It's really, really cool. And I wanted this level of freedom for the app, this level of editability, because I know as a creator myself that having our own creative agency over tools like this, having options to tweak it just the way we want, is a top priority. Okay, so again, there's even cooler tools in here. Let me show you. The tool that I love the most, being a fan of 90s era comic books, is the edge dragging tool. Okay, and what this does, it's super cool, right? It actually allows you to be able to drag the edges of these panels over the top of the panels that have already been laid down. Okay, so it creates overlapping or floating panels, which you might be used to seeing in, like I said, those 90s era comic books. Okay, so we can pull these down, create a little bit of a staggered effect if we want to, and ultimately end up with something that looks super dynamic and interesting. Now I'm just messing about here. I'll show you how to make up a page that actually looks really nice in a bit when we get our references happening, but check that out. Pretty sweet. But here's the other thing. Maybe you're like, well, you know what? I actually don't want some of these panels in here. So we can delete panels if we feel like we've changed our mind on that. And you might be like, well, Clayton, you know, all that empty space down there now, what are you going to fill it with? How are you going to add more panels there? You've already generated your page. Well, guess what? We can actually drag in new panels. Okay, we can literally draw them in there. Okay, check that out. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? And so what we can do then is we can go ahead, take our edge tool here, edge dragging, there we go. And do you know what the beauty of this is? Is that this edge tool, it actually has a snapping capability that enables you to be able to snap this panel, you know, to be an exact gutters space apart from the other panels. All right, so you can actually still, even as you're drawing in these new panels willy-nilly, you can go ahead and you can still neaten this up. You can make it super clean cut. Everything is as it should be, nice and consistent. So let's draw in another panel over here, right? And if you go outside into the print area, well, that's going to glow red, so that'll let you know whether or not you're wandering off the reservation there. And then we can go ahead once more, click this one into place, make sure everything's aligned here, and there we have it. Right? Awesome stuff. I mean, you can't beat that, right? You can see the customization. You can see our ability here to really come up with any sort of page layout that we want. All right, sweet stuff. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to collapse some of these menus just to help organize things here, and we're going to go to the per panel options. And this may be the coolest thing, or some of the coolest stuff about this app. Hang on, let me jump back up to interactive editing for a moment, because I'm going to get rid of this panel, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to expand this one, okay? So we're going to have a really nice area to work within there. Look at that alignment. Nice and neat and tidy, just the way I like it. Beautiful. So now that that's done, we'll go to our per panel options. And down here, we're going to select panel 5. So we can apply what I'm about to show you to each of these panels individually. Now, we all love a good old-fashioned inset panel from time to time, so we can turn that on, create an inset panel. And then what we're going to do is, well, if we didn't want in a panel here at all, we could make it completely borderless, so we could have that disappear entirely, which is pretty cool. You know, it's nice to have a borderless panel on a page once in a while. So we've got that there as an option. We can also go ahead and we can change the thickness of this panel's outline individually from the others. So we have a global thickness that we can apply to all the panels, and then we've got a individual panel thickness that we can select in this per panel options area. Now you can also rotate the panels if you like. I'm going to set this to 0 though, because I don't want it to be rotated. There we go. Okay, so this is my favorite. This is my very favorite tool in this entire app, and that is the Enable Perspective Grid option. And like I said, you can enable perspective grids for each of these panels individually. How cool is that? Check out how easy this is to use. All right, what we can do is we can choose from 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, or 3-point perspective. Now, you know that I love a good 3-point perspective grid. All right, you've got two options here when it comes to determining where these vanishing points go along the horizon line. You can either drag them manually with the mouse, okay, and that'll give you a certain amount of range. It usually gives you enough range, in fact. But as you'll see here with the third point of perspective, that's only going to allow us to take it so far. So if we want some additional lift on that vanishing point, what we can do is simply come down here and use the sliders. Right? And you might be thinking, well, Clayton, that's really good, but you know, you've dragged these vanishing points out so far that the grid it's looking kind of, well, it looks like the guidelines aren't really dense enough, right? Like you got these giant spaces. How are you supposed to follow the guidelines? Well, I thought about that, and you can actually adjust the grid density. So we can pump this up to extreme and get a very detailed perspective grid here. Now, of course, you can also adjust the horizon line. Let me jump up here to the display composition aids. What I'm going to do is just turn off these thirds guidelines so you can see it a little bit better. But as you can see, you can lift that horizon line to whatever point you want. It's really sweet. Not only that, you can actually adjust the angle of the perspective grid, so the angle of the camera or the horizon line, and introduce that additional level of dynamic cinematic appeal. Right? Now I know that there is no other app out there that even comes close to doing what it is I'm showing you here. That's why I'm so excited, because it's not just you guys that get to use this, it's also me. Like, this is a tool that I am going to use all the freaking time, man. Do you know how annoying it is to have to draw up perspective grids manually for each individual panel and to like try and figure that out and get it accurate? That's not a problem anymore. This app does it for you. I mean, but still gives you the control to be able to set it up however it is you want. You can also, if you want to, delete your panel. We're not going to do that here, but let me show you. Let me set up the perspective grid in another panel. Okay, so let's say that we go for, we'll go for panel number 2 here. Okay, I think that's the one that we want. Enable the perspective grid. Yep, that's good. There we go. And for this one, you know what we're going to do? We are going to give this one a nice bold outline. There we go, something like that. Lovely. And then what we can do is we'll give this one a 2-point perspective. We'll drag this out here, and you'll notice that I can also drag the horizon line up and down when using the mouse. So that's pretty sweet. You can pull that up to about there. Done and dusted. Now I like my grids to look nice and neat. And by the way, if you're trying to get these, these vanishing points back, you can simply hit the reset button, and that'll allow you to reposition them back to their default placement. You know, if you want to have another shot at it. There we go. Beautiful stuff. I love it. Check that out. Okay, great. So, you know, as I said, you can do every single one of these panels. I won't bore you by going through and doing that, because there is some other examples that I want to show you here throughout this demonstration, but let's turn all of these on. Okay, you can see that the page flow actually adapts to the adjustments that we make to the page layout. But once that's all done and we're happy with it, you've got an undo and redo button down here too. If you want to, you know, again, if you've got any regrets, you can always go back and do it again. But once that's done, we can go to the Save Page option down here. And you've got a number of options with this. Now it saves it out as JPEGs, and these JPEGs can be imported into Photoshop, Clip Studio, basically any digital drawing application that you want. And the wonderful thing is that this export, these images are nice and high res, right? Like they're going to give you more than enough resolution to actually just start drawing out your comic book page right into these panels. And that, like I said, they'll be print ready. So you don't have to do anything after this. You don't have to sit there umming and ahhing trying to figure out whether or not your comic book pages are, you know, placed within the right dimensions. Like it's all set up, good to go, ready to rock and roll. So here's your options. You can actually save out a JPEG with all the guides, all the panels combined as one image. So we can go ahead and do that. Done. Or we can go ahead and save them out as separated guides. So we could go ahead and do that. And that will essentially open up multiple save windows for each one of the layers that we've created here. We just save them out. And what that will do is it will save out the perspective grids to an image. It'll save out the thirds guidelines to an image, the print guides to an image, and the panels themselves to an image, all of which, like I said, can be imported into Photoshop or Clip Studio, layered on top of one another using the multiply blending mode, and you'll have a full layered composition there for your panel layouts, of which you can adjust the opacity, whatever you want, and you'll be good to go. You'll have all the guides there, all the compositional aids to be able to draw up your page effectively and with ease. And then of course we've got an option here to save out just the panels, right? So if you're happy with everything, if you don't really have a need for those perspective grids or the thirds guidelines or the eye flow, then you can simply just save out a nice clean presentation for those panels, feeling confident, knowing that it's all going to work out. You just got to draw those pretty pictures in those panels and you'll be set. Okay, great. Let me jump into the chat to see what comments we're getting. Yeah, saving as individual layers is pretty freaking awesome. It's brilliant, really. And we needed that. You know, that was Corey's idea. He said, wouldn't it be cool if you could save all those layers out individually? Yep, so Keith says it'll save about 2 hours of making individual CSP perspective grids. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you know what? It takes me longer than 2 hours, to be honest with you, to actually set up these perspective grids. Yeah, you know, so many wonderful. Michael Pedro is like, what kind of sorcery is this? I know, I know. Look, when I said, you know, I hate to say revolutionary for comic book artists because it sounds like hyperbole. You know, it sounds like really hyped up, but I only say it because I actually believe it. Like, this is a bit of a game changer. Yeah, it's super cool, man. It's really, really awesome stuff. Waxonalion. Matt says, this is a very interesting tool. I'll definitely be playing around with this and using it for developing my own pages. Yeah, I think everybody should. And one of the reasons that I think everybody should use it is because it's one of the, you know, we're all starting off at different levels here when it comes to creating comics. And if we can get various aspects of what it is we're creating to a professional level with ease so that we can focus on the things that maybe aren't quite there yet and really dedicate our time and energy to, say, you know, learning anatomy or, you know, learning figure drawing while our comic book pages actually look professional, are laid out well. That's just one less thing that we have to worry about. And I love the idea of consistency, that every comic book artist out there can actually wind out with pages that have great layouts, which read well, and the proper dimensions of the pages that they should have with the print guide set up. And of course, the perspective is just freaking sick, man. I mean, that's, like I said, that's my favorite. Yeah, you can drag the vanishing points. It's super cool. And I'm going to show you in just a moment that you can basically do any page you want. And the way that I'm going to show you that is by actually importing real comic book pages done by artists that you love. You know, Mark Silvestri, David Finch, and some of the classics, Alfredo Alcala and John Buscema. And I'm going to show you how we can literally replicate those pages in this application so that you realize you've got ultimate flexibility here to create fully fledged professional comic book pages. Yeah, it is a super game changer, man. It really is. Yeah. And the cool thing is that this isn't replacing you as an artist. This is just allowing you to get to the art part of the process much quicker. Feeling confident and knowing that all the art you place down on the page is being placed onto a page that is actually done up correctly to the professional standards you'd expect to see for an American comic book page or a European comic book page. Eric says, wow, this is awesome. Sorry for being in the background. No, that's all good, man. That's really cool. If you guys have any questions, by the way, just let me know. I'll be happy to answer them. So this tool, I'm glad you asked, Ghost Rider. It's actually a part of the How to Draw Comics Academy. So if you want to check it out, jump to the link in the description below. Now, the How to Draw Comics Academy, when you become a member of it, it doesn't just give you access to this tool, but it actually, I mean, it's a full-blown program, right? Like you get the education, you get the feedback and the coaching from me, you get an awesome community of people who are going to support you. You get weekly sessions, like studio sessions, where we all get to hang out and draw. It's really awesome stuff. So yeah, basically I've included this tool as an additional feature of the How to Draw Comics Academy. And many of the people in the chat right now are actually using this app or do have access to it. So, you know, Keith, I know you've got access to it. And James, you've definitely got access to it. So yeah, try it out and let me know because I'd love to hear how you're finding it. All right, let's get on to something else that's super fun. Okay, I've been looking forward to this. This is even better. All right. So let's say that we want to create just a blank page, right? Like we have our thumbnail sketch that we've done up. We've created a draft for our comic book page. So what we're going to do here is we're simply going to keep this on the US comic for now. We're going to go 0 panels, blank page, and we're just going to hit generate. And that's going to instantly create a nice blank page for us to work within. Now what we're going to do is upload a reference image. And here's how that's going to look. I'm going to actually import a thumbnail draft that I did for a comic book of my own, just so that you can actually see how this all works, and then we'll do some examples of other professional comic book pages that we might want to use as use cases, I guess. So let's start with, I'm going to go with this one because it's pretty complex. Okay, now you'll notice that as soon as I import that in there, I've got the ability to go ahead here and adjust the opacity of this page. So I can ramp it right up so that we can see it clearly. I can take it all the way down to 0 opacity. So that's, really flexible. But what you're going to notice, it's very faint, but you can see, if you look closely, that we've got the panels actually sitting outside the live area, which isn't very useful to us, right? Like, if we're going to be drawing panels over the top of this thumbnail sketch, we can't have the panels of the thumbnail sketch going outside the live area that we want to work within. So what we're going to do is just scale this back so that it's fitting within the live area, like so. Okay, and that's just about right. Now, it doesn't have to be 100% exact necessarily. All right, we're going to maybe push it out to about here. That feels pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty much perfect, really. If we want to reposition it, on the X and Y axes, we can totally do that. But I'm pretty happy with that positioning. So this is all good. This is all hunky-dory, all right? Let me have a sip of coffee. Okay, great. So now we have our reference image, our thumbnail sketch imported in the application. You can see that it was in an instant, okay? There's no fuddle-arsing around. You can get it right in there. Okay, so next up, we're going to go ahead and we're simply, rather than generating a finished layout, we're going to create one from scratch right over the top of this. So let's check it out. We're going to jump down to interactive editing, and we're going to click on the enable panel drawing function. And then we're just going to start drawing panels in here, okay? So we're going to start down here, draw right in there like so, and boom. Then you might be sitting there and thinking, wait a second, Clayton, I can't see the draft anymore because the panel you just drew in is covering it. That's no worries, right? Because guess what? You can also adjust the opacity of your panels. So we're just going to drop that down to about here so that we've got a little bit of translucency over the top of that area behind the panel. Okay, great. So now, and watch how quick this is. We're going to drop a panel in here. We're going to drop another panel in there. And, well, we've got an open panel down here. But guess what? You can actually make it so that these, like I said, these panel borders are disappearing. And so what that means is we can still have our perspective grid in here within the borderless panel that we will ultimately have, which is pretty cool, right? So let me now go ahead and actually make some adjustments because, obviously we're looking at this, it's a little bit of a mess. It's good for the most part. We got these panels in pretty darn fast, but now we need to perfect it. Okay, so this is really easy too. All we got to do is go ahead and we're going to select our enable edge dragging tool. We're going to click on this one. Okay, and let me just check to see how these panels are actually layered. All right, awesome. So we'll pump that up, and what we're going to do is just make sure that this one's going to the edge of the page, or the live area rather. Okay, and then we're going to click on this one to bring it forward. That's all you got to do. If you want one panel to overlap another panel, you just click on it and bring it forward. It's no worries at all. Okay. And then what we're going to do is take this panel and we're going to click on that one because that one's supposed to be overlapping the panel above. And then we're going to take this one. And, well, you know, like I said, this one's going to be borderless, so it really doesn't matter too much. We just want enough range there to fit the perspective grid in it. So we could actually, if we wanted to, we could pull this all the way up here, like so, and give us a nice amount of space for that perspective grid. Okay, make sure this one's sitting on top, and you know what? We're ready to rock. Okay, so let's go ahead here and make these panels fully opaque. What we're going to do next is we're going to jump down here, turn off this page flow thingy. We can also turn off the thirds guidelines for now. See things a little better. And hey, how about this? Why don't we do something real nifty here? Why don't we base the perspective grids that we're about to do up on the draft that we've created here for the page? Okay, so let me just go ahead and I'm going to align this. Cool, just so that there's no overlap there. All right, awesome. So we dropped the opacity a little bit. I'll drop it even more to make it more obvious. And now we're going to go ahead into our per panel options. We're going to select panel number 1, and we are going to attend to the perspective grid. You know, even though we've got all these fancy tools at our disposal, we really are only concerned with the perspective grid in this example. Now it is pretty much a 2-point perspective grid, okay, which has been set on a tilt. So let's go ahead and adjust that tilt. All right, it's going to be about there. And then what we'll do is we'll pull this down here. And now we're going to pull that vanishing point out to there. We're going to pull this one out to here. And I think that's feeling pretty good. That'll work. We could also go ahead and we could make this a 3-point perspective. So let's do that. We'll pull that one all the way up there. You can see that it's still maintained the tilt, which is great in this particular case. We'll take this one out here, this one out here, and then we're just going to drop that horizon line down to where we want it in the scene, which is about here. And then it's done. Right? Now, like I said, we can always go ahead and actually increase the density of that perspective grid, bump it up all the way if we want to, and that's feeling pretty good to me. So let's move on to the next panel. Whoops, darn it, I went ahead and I just reset it. Whoops. Let's have another crack at that. All right. No worries. It's very easy to just go ahead and redo that. There we go. There's our perspective grid. So we're going to jump up to here and select panel number 2. We're going to enable the perspective grid for this one. And you can see that we've got a perspective here where we're looking down at the desert scene. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll keep this simple. I will pull this finishing point out here and that vanishing point out there. And the important part here is just making sure that we get the horizon line correct. And I'm thinking that horizon line is probably going to be about here. Okay, fantastic. Now we'll increase the density of this perspective grid just a bit to about there. That's all we need. Now, obviously, this is a headshot that we're looking at in the next panel, which means we don't really need a perspective grid, but I'm going to drop one in there just for fun, just so that we can keep some consistency here. Okay, you can see that this particular perspective grid is also on a little bit of a tilt. You know, I like to tilt my perspective grids a lot. A quick little tip for you. It's going to create a nice, dramatic, cinematic setup for your panel. So I highly, highly recommend doing that. And yeah, we'll just leave it at that. I mean, that's pretty straightforward, isn't it? You know, nothing too complicated about that. And then finally, we've got our last panel. Okay. And what we'll do for this one is we'll jump down to panel number 4. We'll activate the perspective grid. Now you can see with this one that we're actually looking down on top of it. Okay. What we'll also do while we're at it is we're going to go ahead and we're going to make this one, panel number 4, borderless. Okay, so we're just going to switch that border off. And next what we'll do is we'll make this a, well, hey, let's make it 3-point. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull this vanishing point all the way out there, pull that one all the way out here. You know, I prefer to use the sliders, but like I said, you can use the mouse if you want to. That's totally fine too. If you run out of range, obviously use the sliders. They go for a long, long time before they run out of gas. So next up, we're going to raise this horizon line all the way up. We're going to raise it up to somewhere about here, okay? Because we're looking down on the scene in this particular instance. And then we're going to pull this vanishing point down even further to about here. And you can see that based upon the positioning of these vanishing points, we've actually caused ourselves to have less of a density for the perspective grid. So all we got to do in that case is just hit that grid density and take it to the extreme, right? Wonderful. So this is looking good. We've set that up. What we can do, we may as well, is put in our rule of thirds. That's fine. We can have the page flow if you want to have that, but you know, once you got the general idea of how that's going to go, you don't really need it. What we are going to do is increase the panel opacity. Okay, we actually do want to make sure that all those panels are going to be nice and opaque for the export. I mean, they would be anyway, but just to make sure. And then finally, we have 2 options here. Now you don't have to remove the reference image. If you export this page right now, even saving it as a combined page with guides, it's not going to save out that reference image, okay? So just keep that in mind, that reference image is exclusive to the application. It's not going to export. But just so that we can see what it is we've ended up with here, I'm going to turn the opacity on that right down. And here we have a page that is totally ready to rock and roll. And we could, of course, turn off all these guides, but you know, ultimately when we save this out, you know, we can do panels only, and it'll save out just the panels. We can save it out as a JPEG that separates all of these, all of the different layers that we're working with here, so that we can import them in our favorite digital drawing application, or we can save it out as combined, and it'll do its thing beautifully. Okay, so there it is, right? Let me go through this chat here and take a look, see what comments we've got to go through. Wonderful. So Keith says, oh, this is pitch perfect timing because I've got about 45 pages of roughs, just like this reference sketch that I can use for this. And look, you know, I want you guys to ask yourself right now, how long would it take you to do up a page layout, complete with perspective grids and these thirds guidelines and all of that jazz, making sure that it's perfectly aligned to the print area and set at the dimensions that you need for a comic book page? How long would that take? Well, it only took us, I don't know, I wasn't counting, but it felt like it was only 5 to 10 minutes, maybe. I tend to ramble, so it might have taken longer, but you get the point, that this is a fast, accurate way of working that allows you to dial things in just right. Matt says, being able to import a previously drawn comic page makes this app an excellent tool for studying your favorite artists. Oh, it absolutely does, 100%. Yeah, I know, right? I know. You know what, Michael? I was actually, as I was working on this app, like I said, I'm a professional comic book artist too, man. So everything that I would want to see in an app like this, I was implementing. I was also running it past my brother Corey, who's also a comic book artist, probably reads more comic books than me. So, and I was, you know, I had references up as I was designing this application of actual professional comic book pages, and I made sure that everything kind of matched, right? That I could create with this app everything that I was seeing in those pages that I loved and adored. And we needed the ability to create those 90s layouts for sure. Michael, I'm glad that you made it. This is an app that I've been working on, which basically allows you to lay out your comic book pages with ease and accuracy, and it's just really sweet and fun to mess around with. Okay, let's do another example here. This time I want to show you, we're going to mix it up a little bit. I'm going to show you a more vintage, Bronze Age, Golden Age style setup and how you can get that pretty much perfect. And then we'll end this off with a actual 90s era image comic book page. You know, I've got a few here that we can use as an example. I'll let you guys decide in the chat. We've got some examples from Batman versus the Darkness, some examples from Aphrodite IX by David Finch. We've also got an example from my favorite comic of all time, besides the Phantom, and that is Spawn. So I'll let you guys decide what we go with there. But for now, let's take a look at the Savage Sword of Conan and challenge ourselves to see whether or not we can actually do up a page like that. All right, so we're going to take a little bit of a different approach here. We are going to actually create a, well, you know what? We could take multiple approaches here. I'm not going to generate it automatically. I don't think we need to do that. And that's really just if you've got no idea what you want to go with. If you don't even have a script yet, right, but you know how many panels you want on that layout, you can hit the Generate Page Layout button. Heck, if you don't know how many panels you want, you can just hit Automatic and it'll make it up for you. But what we will do here is we'll just generate another blank page. You can see that there's a lot of tools, a lot of power in this application, and that's why I've made it so all of these menus are collapsible just to keep things nice and organized. But for this one, yeah, we're going to go US comic, although we might see if we can go a little bit wider for this and go for more of a European dimensions. We'll just see how this page actually fits. But we'll remove the reference image. Whoops. Let me go ahead and regenerate that. There we go. Upload reference image. And for this one, we are going to go, you know what? Let's go with this page. Okay, now the opacity has been shifted all the way down. We're going to turn that up here, like I said, just to see what it is we're working with. Now you'll notice that there is a little bit of space at the top of this page. And how amazing is this though, that these panels sit almost perfectly within our live area. So let's actually change this to the European page dimensions. It's a little bit of an older, more vintage setup. In fact, if you're in Australia, this would be A4 dimensions, so standard printing dimensions for a printer. But what we can do here is, well, we can just make sure that things line up as best we can get it. So I'm going to scale this, okay, up to about there, and we'll nudge it over slightly, maybe to about here. Let's see if we can scale it up just a tiny bit more. Okay, that's looking good. Wow, we might actually get this spot on. Whoops. Take this back to 0. Okay, let's lift it. Okay, there we go. Let's shrink it. Let's shrink it slightly. We'll bring it down to about here. And I think that'll just about do it. Now, it's not 100% aligning to that live area, but we've got it pretty darn close, which is great. Okay, we'll leave it at about there. You know, I might actually make it so that you can type those numbers in if you really want to. I know Corey suggested that to me early on. I forgot to put it in there. But here we are. We got everything set up, ready to rock and roll. So let's go ahead and do this, okay? We are going to go to panel styling down here, and I'm going to set these gutters to wide. And the reason that I'm setting them to that, even though we don't have anything in there yet, is just because for the snapping, we'll be able to hopefully snap these edges to a gutter's width apart as we're drawing them in there. So here we go. We'll jump down to interactive editing. We'll go enable panel drawing, and we're just going to start whacking them in there, like so. There's 1. There's 2. Check out how fast this is. There's 3. And 4. And of course, we got another one down here. This is a borderless panel, but we'll just lay it in there for now. And there we have it. Let's go ahead and actually drop the opacity of our panel here. Okay, there we go. And now what we can do is actually get all of this stuff lined up, okay, clicked into place. Right, so we'll go to the edge dragging tool, and we'll just make sure that oh, look at that, it does snap. It snaps beautifully to those gutter widths that we're looking for. It's almost exactly the way that we want it. So all of these gutter widths, they're spaced apart beautifully. Now that one wasn't, but it's clicked into place real easily there. And you know, besides the perspective grids, which you guys know that we can very well lay in here if we want to, this page is ready to go. Like, it's done. We got the panels laid in there in record time. How cool is that? So like I said, look, I'm going to do one example here just to show you that, well, remind you really that we can add in these lovely perspective grids. But we'll go, let's see, panel number 3 is a nice big one. And you know what, let's apply some effects to it just for fun. We can create an inset, a panel inset, if we want to, but we won't. Now that's thickened up because of the, it's set to the gutter width that we placed down at the beginning. I'm actually going to make it so that you can adjust that gutter width for the specific panels that you're working in individually. So that could be cool. We'll leave that off for now. Let's enable the perspective grid. And this is a pretty basic perspective setup. So, I mean, it's going to be easy. Check it out. We're just going to lay that in there. We'll drag that horizon line down to about where we want it. I'd say it's going to be there. And then we'll pull this one out here. And we'll pull that one out there. And I think that'll just about do it. You know, this one could probably be pulled out further, like so. And lovely. I'm liking that a lot. Let's go ahead and increase the density a little, maybe a lot. Okay, and there's our perspective grid, sorted, done and dusted. Let's take a look at the page flow to make sure that's working nicely. I mean, it will be, but there you have it. Okay, so as you can see, you can do up Golden Age and Bronze Age comic book pages pretty darn easily. And check this out. We'll go ahead here and we'll drop the opacity of our reference image so we can see that layout done up nicely. And by the way, if you feel like those frames, those outlines for the panels are too thick, you can always scale them back to thin. Heck, you can scale them back to light and then they'll be like razor sharp. Or you can blow them up to extra heavy. It's really up to you. Like I said, standard works well for me. Okay, well, let's not dilly-dally. Let's do another example here real quick. We're going to do a classic 90s comic book page from a comic that you probably know very well. Let me check the chat to see what was decided upon. All right. No suggestions. I guess I'm going to be picking. Okay, Miguel Galindo. He doesn't get it. He doesn't get what it does. It allows you to create comic book layouts easily and accurately with, you know, less effort than you would have to apply if you were doing it manually. Manga page size. So manga page size, funnily enough, is similar dimensions, I believe, to the A4 dimensions. It's just smaller, right? So it's like A5 size. At least that is just off the top of my head what I understand it to be. So this actual page here, these dimensions would work for a manga book. I believe. I'll double check that. And if it's not, I will implement it as an option for the page size. Like I can update this really easily. So any additional features that you want to see added into this app that you feel like would be of value, just let me know. Like hit me up. You can tell me here in the chat. You can email me at claytonbarton@howtodrawcomics.net. Any suggestions you've got, I would love to hear them. Yeah, no worries, Miguel. That's totally cool. Don't worry. We're going to do another example here. So you're going to see exactly what this app was built for. All right, let's do another example. So this one's going to challenge us a little bit, okay? This is one of those fancy, complicated page layouts that, you know, were spinning out the traditionalists back in the 90s when the image guys took off. All right, let's see what Trashy Trav says. To learn comic art, do you suggest copying other artists for a while to get a feel, or just start winging it, even if it looks bad? Haha. You know, do both. For me, I actually did master studies of the comic book artists I like. So I would take a Mark Silvestri image, draw it up, and get it as close as I could possibly get it. And I would do that for all the artists that I like. David Finch, Mark Silvestri. I remember I was also studying Ed Beans back then, or Ed Benez. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce his last name. Even J. Scott Campbell I was doing studies of. But then I didn't stop at that. I would actually do studies of real life people, okay, like actual photo references. I would draw those up and I'd try to mix it up a little bit. And then I'd take all of that and then I'd see how I would go with it without the training wheels, and I'd try to draw up something of my own, try to integrate what I'd learned from those master studies, from those reference studies. And I would basically rinse and repeat that process until slowly but surely what I was drawing just off the top of my head was actually looking kind of good. Okay, so we got Comics Legend in here. He says, this is cool. How does it export the file? Does it export a layered file with the grid on a separate layer? Sweet. So you've come in a little later, which is totally fine because it means I get the opportunity to recap on the save function. Save function is really cool. It gives you 3 options when you hit save page. It's going to give you the option to save everything out that you see here as a single JPEG. And when I say JPEG, I mean a high res, high quality JPEG that you can work straight over the top of in Photoshop or Clip Studio Paint. It also allows you to be able to save out your page as individual JPEG layers that can be imported into Photoshop or Clip Studio or whatever application you like to use. Change the layer mode to multiply, and you can overlay those layers on top of one another, and you got a whole full layout composition there that's going to help you to draw up your comic book pages with all the guides attached and all the aids that you've applied to the page. And then, of course, you can save the JPEG out with just panels only, which means you're going to get a nice, clean layout for your comic book page. Pretty cool stuff. Alrighty, let's go back to US comic page. You'll notice that it actually adapts if you've already got a layout on there. It's pretty sweet. And what we're going to do for this one is we're going to generate another blank page here, and we're going to import a new reference. Okay, so we'll upload this reference image. Well, actually, let's go ahead and generate this layout. Cool. Now for spawn, we're going to go with this one. Okay, and you'll notice that nothing happened. Why? Because I've got the opacity turned all the way down. So there we go. Okay, notice how close this page is to actually filling up the space that we're working in. That's because we've actually made sure that these pages are the proper dimensions for an American comic book. Okay, awesome. What we're going to do is we're going to scale this up a tiny bit more. Just a tiny bit. Okay, and then we're going to scooch it over to here. Just to make sure everything's nice and aligned. They could probably be pulled up to 102. Okay, that's exact. That's exactly what we want. Awesome. All right, let's lay these panels down. Let's see how fast we can actually do it. All right, let's drop the opacity. Well, let's leave the opacity nice and high there. We're going to jump down to interactive editing. And then we're going to go panel drawing. And we're going to lay in a panel here, of course. There we go. We're going to lay in another panel here. And then we're going to lay in another panel here. And we're done. We're pretty much done. All right, we're going to perfect these a little bit. Let's just drop that opacity slightly. And yeah, that one's looking pretty good. I think that's pretty much exactly where we want it. This one, we're just going to align to that side of the page. Sweet, that's all good. I'm liking a look at that. Done. We're done. Okay, we're just going to make sure that that one's sitting on top here. I think it's supposed to be anyway. Yeah. Great. And there we have it. That's our page layout. Ready to rock and roll. Now you already know how to add the perspective grid guides in there, but we'll add one to this top panel. Why not? Let's go ahead and do that. Even though in the actual page it really doesn't need a grid panel because it's just headshots. But hey, why not? Now we can actually go ahead and remove this reference image. What I've noticed is that one can probably be clicked over to the edge of the live area. And that's looking good. Now if we drew another panel down here, this line of sight would jump down to the bottom of the page. It's just that it doesn't have a panel to go to. But we've left that open, you know, because that's what the reference was showing us. So just for those who haven't seen this function yet, we're going to go ahead, we're going to hit panel 1, we're going to select perspective grid, and then we're going to go down to select the perspective type that we want to use. We'll go 3-point perspective for this. And then we're simply going to go ahead and we are going to adjust the positioning of these vanishing points to our liking. We'll pull that one over there. We'll pull this one over here. That's looking pretty good. And then we'll up the density. Done. There's our perspective grid, ready to rock and roll. And then, like I said, we can totally save that out and we'll actually be able to start drawing on top of this panel layout. How sweet is that? Let me show you another example. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to reset this. We're going to upload a slightly more complicated 90s era panel layout. Okay, so as you can see, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on. But for our neat little comic page layout generator, it's no problem. All right, so let's go ahead and we're just got the first step always is to make sure that our page is aligning to the safe area of our comic. Okay, so that's feeling pretty good. Let's shuffle it over a bit to about there. Done. And then we're going to, yeah, we'll just leave it like that. That's looking pretty good to me. Once that's done, we'll jump back down to our enable panel drawing. And you know, the only reason I'm showing you how to lay these panels over the top of other references, other professional comic book pages, is to show you that this application is indeed capable of creating any layout that you want. But the tools that we showed at the beginning, such as, for example, the merging tool, the slicing tool, all that good stuff, I mean, that is designed to be as customizable as absolutely possible. So you're going to have some fun messing around with those. You know, it's arguable that these more 90s inspired comic book page layouts are actually easier than those ones, because you just dump in panels over the top. Okay, so let's draw in that panel there. And then, yeah, we can just, you know, this is super awesome. All right, we can go ahead here and lay in these 3 panels down the bottom. We'll make sure that they're relatively aligned. You can see that it, you know, this snap tool is so beautiful. Okay, let me change the gutters here. There's my undo button. Okay, I'm going to undo this. And we're going to change our gutters to narrow. All right. Let's go ahead and, oh, that's exactly what we want. Lovely. We'll do the same thing here. Done. Okay. Now you can see there's some misalignment going on, but that's fine because we can simply now go to our edge dragging tool. We can click on this, we can click on that, and I do believe that's the way the setup is looking. And then we can simply go in here and we can make sure that these panels are nice and aligned as they should be. Okay, that's looking good. Make sure the base is aligned too. And there we have it. All right. Now I'm going to do another layer up here, or another panel rather. And the reason I'm going to do another panel up here is because I think this would be a really fun one to create a perspective grid within. So we're going to go ahead and actually do that. This will be the last demo, by the way, that I'll do here, just because we pretty much covered everything. As you can see, it's a really powerful tool. Lots of flexibility to help you design any style, any kind of comic book page that you could possibly want. And yeah, I hope that you'll use it and that you'll get a ton of value out of it and that you'll enjoy the process. Actually, I know, can you believe it? Actually enjoy the process of laying out your comic book pages. So for this final one, we're going to go ahead here. We will drop the opacity of the panels so that we can see what's underneath them in order to set up this perspective grid. Then we'll jump down to per panel options. We'll select panel number 1. We'll make it border. Whoa, hang on. That was the first panel I laid down, that's why. So that means that this is going to be probably panel number 6 we want. There we go. So we're going to make panel number 6 borderless. I know it's at the top, but it's just because it was the 6th panel that we laid in. And then we're going to apply our perspective grid. And if you're feeling like you can't quite see properly, we can always raise the opacity of that panel. And then we're going to go for a 2-point perspective setup here. And simply, you know, it's crazy because perspective, you know, it shouldn't be this easy. It really shouldn't be, but for some reason, setting up these perspective grids is just a piece of cake now. So, you know, it speeds up the process. I'm actually using the little coffee table there as a reference point. But yeah, this finishing point's going to sit around about here. So that's pretty cool. And that's it. It's done. Let's make sure, though, that we've actually got the horizon line set to the correct height. Okay, so that's probably going to be, I would say, actually around about there, which means we'll indeed have to adjust these vanishing points now. All right, we'll pull that one out here. Done and dusted. You know, David Finch, I've seen him work. He's got to manually do up these perspective grids. It's not fun. It's not fun when you're stuck doing perspective grids when you could be drawing. Okay, drawing the actual scene, drawing the artwork inside the panels. Okay, so now that that's done, we're going to go ahead and we're going to increase the density to extreme so that we get a lot of guidelines to work with there. And then, you know what we're going to do? We're going to pump up the panel opacity to 100%. We're going to remove this reference image, and we are left with our lovely, very complex panel layout. Now, I'm noticing, see, this is how much of a perfectionist I am. I'm noticing there's a slight discrepancy with these gutters. Or am I just imagining that? I don't know. That must be fine. Cool. Sweet. So it's done. It's dusted. Now all we got to do is just save that out. We can either save it out as individual layers, we can save it out as a combined composition, or we can save just the panels out so they're ready to start drawing. All right. And that pretty much wraps up this beautiful little demo of the comic page layout generator by the How to Draw Comics Academy. Highly suggest that you jump into the Academy, check out this awesome app, and take advantage of the incredible features that it has to offer for your comic book page layouts. You know, whether you're working from a script, whether you've got your thumbnails drafted out, if you're looking for a straightforward, accurate, and consistent way to to draw up your comic book page layouts with neatness and conciseness, along with all the awesome compositional guides that this app offers, then I highly suggest that you jump into it, make sure that you're utilizing it for all of your pages, and rest assured that your pages have the correct perspective set up for each and every panel, that you're drawing onto a page that has the correct dimensions for a US comic book or a European comic book or a manga-sized comic book, if that's what you're going for, and that you're drawing within the correct print guide so that your artwork doesn't get cut off during the publishing process. I'm going to go through the comments one more time just to answer any questions that might have popped up along the way. And yeah, once again, if you want to hit me up via email, or if you can contact me on social media, I'm available, so I'd be happy to answer any questions that you've got. Eric says, commendable on how savvy you are on both coding and design there, Clayton. Both you and Corey should be proud of this. Yeah, I definitely could have done it without Corey's help. Very lucky to have him on side. He gave me a lot of the ideas and helped me to iron out a lot of the things that, for example, Corey was the one who said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could actually import our thumbnails into the application and work right in over the top of them? That's all Corey. So it was a bit of a collaboration actually with him. Okay, Keith says, amazing app, absolutely going to dive into using it. Yep. And the thing is that this, you see a lot of apps out there. And when you think of a comic book page layout app, just right off the bat, you're thinking, man, this is going to create something dodgy, right? Like it's not going to be professional. It's going to look super amateur. That's not the case with this app. I'm a professional comic book artist, so I designed it with professional comic book artist usage in mind. I designed it to a degree of finesse that I am comfortable and confident using it. And I really do mean it when I say that. I'm going to be using this for all the comic book page layouts that I create going forward, just because it's a super awesome and convenient tool. And I know what it's like not to have a tool like that. It's a huge time waster. You end up with inaccuracies. You end up having to mess around, resizing and readjusting things. This makes it simple and easy and straightforward so that you can just get the layout portion of the workflow sorted and jump straight into the drawing. It's incredible. And I really needed to show you how incredible it is, because explaining it just doesn't hit the same. So I really do hope that you felt it. And I can tell by the comments here that you guys see the power of this app, and I really am so happy that it's not just me. All right, Eric says, this is so amazing. I need to read up on how to format pages manually, however, because so many things confuse me. This is going to help out so much when experimenting rather than using a template. Totally. And the thing is that if you send these pages to a printer, like for example, Mixam, these pages were created based upon the dimensions that they set for their pages, except that what you get when you export from this application is an even higher res version of that. So the dimensions are correct. And yeah, that's what I love about it also. So Comics Legend says, any thoughts on also maybe having a collection of different comic book page layouts as templates? Yeah, and I mean, hey, I could generate a bunch of templates using this app and package them up if that's what you guys are looking for. So let me know, because I've thought about that in the past, but I just feel like this app is just so much more powerful than any of that, you know. I mean, they'd be great for examples, for sure. Yeah, Todd McFarlane showed up. He had to show up. Yeah, and Corey suggested the panel dragging and the perspective dragging and more. Yeah, there's a lot that Corey actually contributed to the app. So thank you, Corey. Couldn't have done it without you, man. You'll notice that I'm slurring my words a little bit and drinking a lot of coffee. It's because I did do an all-nighter to get this thing done and dusted and non-buggy. So yeah, it was totally worth it. No regrets. Okay, the Art Jedi says, "Hey Clayton, apologies for being late to the stream. I've been dipping in and out. This looks like a huge game changer for me. It is a huge game changer. It really, really is. I think it is. I'm super excited about it, and I actually don't see a reason why every single comic book artist wouldn't use this. I think that they should. I really do. If they're at least if they're a digital comic book artist, you know, especially if they're a digital comic book artist. But I mean, even if you're a traditional comic book artist, you can still freaking, you know, create your layout in this app and then print out the pages to draw on them afterwards, if you want to. But Art Jedi says, this looks like a huge game changer for me. I hate doing panels and measuring everything either way, the gutters. Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. This is, oh man. Yeah, this totally killed me as well. Like getting those gutters correct, I don't know how they do that in traditional comic book illustration. But to get it exact is, you know, I guess they have to measure out the exact millimeters and stuff, but this just does it all for you, and it's super convenient. Jedi says, will it be available on the iPad? I would love to use it. Yeah, it works on the iPad. It actually opens in your browser, and it should be optimized for iPad and mobile. It should be. So yeah, if it's not, just hit me up and I'll figure it out. Matt says, I'm really digging the ability to tilt the perspective grid. Doing that manually makes my eyes bug out. Yeah. And isn't it cool that, like, we took it one step further every bit of the way with this app. It's like, we didn't just stop at creating a comic book page layout with panels. No, we had to take it even further than that. We had to add in the compositional guides. But then we had to add in the perspective grids on top of it. But then with the perspective grids, we had to add all three different types of perspective, and we had to allow you to be able to tilt those shots and also have complete control over how dense you wanted those guidelines to be. Because the worst thing of all with a comic book with a perspective grid is that sometimes you don't have enough lines to follow when you're actually drawing up the scene. And the other thing that I really love about the perspective grid and the ability to be able to import your thumbnail into the application itself is, because of the workflow I use, I don't like to start out with a perspective grid. I actually like to get in there, get a little bit messy, kind of wing it at first, draw out a really rough sketch of the scene, and then place a perspective grid over the top of it. And that's what this app allows you to do. So it's just so many different options there. Eric says, will be awesome to see you utilize this in class also. Oh, you bet I'm going to be utilizing it in class. Because, you know, I mean, for almost every single class that I do in the How to Draw Comics Academy, I'm manually drawing up panels and trying to get them right and stuff. But no way, this time we're going to actually have proper comic book pages. And I might even add an option there so that you can create like a landscape version of a comic book page, so actually flip it on its side. That could be a lot of fun, especially when I'm doing those demos on a 1920 by 1080 screen. Poxonite says, is this live? The lighting looks too good. It's live, man. It's live. And thank you. I really do appreciate that. It's live. You know, I got like a hair on my beanie. I look like total trash because I haven't slept at all. But I just couldn't wait to show you guys this. You know, I needed to come out. Mitchell says it's easier to use than Clip Studio Paint's panels. Heck yeah, man. I mean, I haven't even bothered to learn how to set those up. And it's an app that's like dedicated to just laying out your comic book pages. So it's really like specialized and honed in on that specific area. The Art Jedi says, awesome, can't wait to play around with it. Definitely play around with it, man. It is a game changer, it really is. It's revolutionary. Eric says, will you eventually pack it into an exe and start to distribute it outside the Academy? Not that it needs to at the moment, though, perhaps. Yeah, I mean, what I'm really trying to do, and I really love that you asked that question, Eric, because I thought about doing that. You know, I really did, but marketing, when it comes to being when it comes to being an artist, marketing too many things, too many products, it gets really taxing. So that's one thing. And so I don't want to be putting up a bazillion like different products and marketing each one of those. And I also find it difficult to keep track of all of them. So one of the reasons I decided to create the Academy was to basically create a central hub for everything that I've got to offer as a professional comic book artist and teacher. And I guess, you know, I've never really offered an app or a tool like this before. So that's new. And potentially, you know, definitely it's not out of the question. I might very well distribute this as an exe someday. But yeah, you know, it's something that is probably in the future, I would say, as to how exactly I would go about that process. But that would probably be a feature that's available on howtodrawcomics.net at some point, possibly. I don't know yet. But the Academy is really where it's at, you know, where everything that I do is at. That's where I spend my time and my energy, and I really love all the people, all the incredible artists that are there. You know, it's just the best time. So if you like the look of the app and you want like even more, like, you know, the app is just one thing, but the Academy offers so much more than just that. And it's totally worth it. Like, ask anyone who's a part of the Academy, they'll tell you that it's more than worth it to be there. So definitely jump in and check it out. It's like, if you're an aspiring comic book artist, I think the How to Draw Comics Academy is genuinely where it's at. And obviously I'm biased, but there's no other place to be, I don't think. Comics Legend says, how do you get access to this wonderful app? So there's a link in the description below to the How to Draw Comics Academy. It's in there. So join up to the How to Draw Comics Academy, jump in, and you'll have access to the app, unlimited access to it. You know, it's not like these AI apps that you see out there where you've got to like buy credits and stuff. Like, you can use it as much as you want. And yeah, you'll also have access to basically everything else the Academy has to offer too, including weekly lessons, live lessons just like this, where I take you through not only laying out comic book pages, but drawing characters, drawing scenes, sequential storytelling, a whole bunch of stuff. Basically everything that I can possibly cover with you guys, as well as the feedback, which is probably one of the biggest perks of the How to Draw Comics Academy. Art Jedi says, I thought it was available for purchase outside the Academy. Hopefully that's possible. Yeah, I mean, you know, if the Academy is a subscription, obviously, and I know that there's actually, you know, subscriptions, artists kind of hate subscriptions, and I get that, right? I do. I totally get that. And I did make it so that there is a one-time purchase option to join the Academy now. It's obviously a little bit higher than the monthly charge, but it basically gives you lifetime access to everything in the Academy. So, I mean, if a one-time payment, lifetime access is more your kind of deal, then that is an option too. Because, yeah, I know. I get the feeling with subscriptions. They're not always everybody's cup of tea. Comics Legend says, will there be an option to do panels for a double page spread? Now that is a cool idea. And you know what? There's gonna be. There absolutely will be. I'll get that in to the app like today or tomorrow, in fact. Let me write that down, in fact. Let me do that. I got my notepad here. Yep, double page spreads. That's a great idea. Okay. Sweet. Eric says, can we all give Clayton a random applause for his dedication to finish this, though? Through the night, yeah. Yeah. There was always little additional things I wanted to tweak, and I'm glad that I did, because it wouldn't be the app that it is without them. Jedi says, very incredible effort put forth to put together this fantastic app. Yeah. Yeah, I'm proud of it, man. I'm really proud of it. Eric says, you don't have to push it. I think leaving it on the Academy and use it as a hub, like how Proco does with the gesture app. Yeah, totally. Totally. You know, I do know that it would be a great standalone app, and I'm sure lots of people would use it. It's just, I feel like it's so much easier, not just for me, but you know, if you're an aspiring comic artist and you want to know where to find all the knowledge you want and all the tools and stuff to make creating comics easier and faster for you, then like just knowing that there's one place you can go and you get all that, I feel like is kind of awesome. Paul Philpott says, just generated my first page. You know, Paul, I was thinking of you when I was designing this app. I really was. Because I thought, you know, Paul is going to be able to use this to create some really kick-ass page layouts. You know, the thing is that whether you're just starting out as a comic book artist or you've got years of experience behind you, the wonderful thing about this app is that it's going to, it evens out the playing field here. It allows both amateurs and professional comic book artists alike to create professional looking page layouts. Yeah, nah. Nope, you don't have to buy any credits for the app at all. Comics Legend says, I don't find the option for the one-time lifetime payment. So if you go to the How to Draw Comics Academy website and you scroll down to the bottom on the front page, okay, you should see an option there for Academy Essentials, and that is the one-time payment option. Yeah, there you go. Cool, you see it. Gotcha. Awesome stuff. Thanks so much, Miguel. I really appreciate you. John says, any plan to export the grids and panels as a PSD file? Like the grid could be on separate layers as well as the imported art to take directly into Clip Studio or Photoshop. You know what? I did try that. I really did. I worked at that for a long period of time to try and get it working. But unfortunately, I had to, you know, the next best option was what we came up with, which was the individual JPEGs. So yes, that idea did cross my mind. I'm going to keep working at it, John. I'm going to make sure that that I try to figure that a way out to do that. But yeah, just know that we did try that, and that was something we wanted as well. So the app is just called Page Layout Generator. Wait, what's it called again? Let me see here. It's Comic Page Layout Generator. I just want to make sure I get it right. Comic Page Layout Generator by How to Draw Comics Academy. Paxtonite. So anything on comic book writing. So we actually don't, if you're talking about courses and lessons that we have in the How to Draw Comics Academy, we actually don't have anything on comic book writing just yet. I would love to get some comic book writers in there to teach a few lessons. Of course, I can give my take on writing, and I often do bring up principles of it in the sequential storytelling lessons that we do in the academy. But yeah, we don't have any formal comic book writing lessons just yet, though I would like to add them. The idea with the academy is to turn it into the ultimate learning resource that covers everything there is to know about drawing comics. It's an ongoing organic library of knowledge that continues to grow week after week, month after month. And I love the fact that it's something that I can continuously add to and provide value to the members of the academy with. Okay, so John said, how about grids as transparent PNG files? That might work. That was another thing that I tried. And I ran into a bit of a snag with that, actually. What would happen, because I actually got it up and running, where we could, in fact, export PNG files with translucent backgrounds, right? So they were set to go. But we ran into a snag. And one of those snags was that the perspective grids would overlap on top of one another. So, for example, if you had one panel sitting on top of another panel, you know, in those floating layout compositions, what would happen is that the perspective grid on the panel above would overlap on top of the perspective grid on the panel below, and it would basically create this giant mess. And try as I might, I couldn't figure out a way around that. I did work at it for a while, believe it or not. So yeah, again, because both of those options didn't really work out, I think I'll focus on trying to get the PSD option up and running. I would love to figure that out because obviously it'd be super convenient. But for now, the JPEGs work. All you got to do is just import them into Photoshop or Clip Studio, and even though it's not as convenient as translucent JPEGs, if you just hit that multiply mode layer option, it'll overlap everything on top real nice. Yeah, I did try to get it so that they wouldn't overlap like that. I felt like I was getting close, but I did. See, the thing is that when you mess around with one aspect of the tool, of the app, it can break other areas of it, unfortunately. Yeah. Eric says, your writing is impeccable. Just the marketing is actually very high quality stuff. Wow. Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate that. It means a lot. It means a lot to get those types of comments. Heck yeah, Stanley's book on writing comics. You can't beat that. Comics Legend says, how does the How to Draw Comics Academy website differ from your Gumroad and Ultra Omnibus courses? So, basically, like 90% of the lessons on the Academy they're not actually available on Gumroad. We have the proportions course on Gumroad. We have some of the character creation courses on Gumroad, the heads workshop. But we have like over 100 lessons probably at this point in the Academy, along with weekly feedback sessions. Now, as far as the Omnibus is concerned, if you've already purchased the Omnibus, especially in the latest promotion, but even if you have the Omnibus right now, what's included in the Omnibus is a VIP pass to the How to Draw Comics Academy for 3 months. So you basically get access to the Academy if you've got the Omnibus. And in that case, there's basically no difference. So you get the weekly feedback that is offered within the How to Draw Comics Academy. You get the weekly studio sessions, which are offered in the How to Draw Comics Academy. You get the weekly live lessons. You get access to the full library. And that library, by the way, it's not like other online learning platforms in the way that, you know, you're only allowed to stream the lessons and that's it. You can actually download every single lesson if you want, and you can keep them on your hard drive and take them wherever you want forever, right? So, you know, I mean, I don't know why the heck I'm saying this, but if you've only subscribed for a month and you somehow manage to download all of the lessons from the entire How to Draw Comics Academy and you decide to unsubscribe, you still get to keep all of those lessons, right? So, and one of the reasons that I made it that way is because I thought about what I would want as a subscriber, and that's what I decided. So yeah, the main key difference then that's left with the How to Draw Comics Academy the How to Draw Comics Ultra Omnibus is that the Ultra Omnibus includes Ed Foychuk's courses, okay? And that's the main difference, because even though Ed Foychuk has some classes in the How to Draw Comics Academy that he's done, they're actually, a majority of his classes and courses aren't present within the How to Draw Comics Academy. So that's the difference there. But yeah, that looks to be about everything. Yeah, no worries, man. You're very welcome. Awesome stuff. Well, that ends both the announcement and the demonstration, showing you that everything that the layout generator from How to Draw Comics Academy has to offer. As you saw, there's some pretty powerful tools there. I'm excited about using it myself. I hope that you're amped too. I can't wait to see the awesome comic book layouts that you create with this application, and I really do hope that it makes a difference within your workflow. That, again, and these are the biggest advantages that I see, that it allows you to keep your comic book pages consistent, neat, and tidy, and that you're able to make sure that they're done up onto a page that's actually printable, that isn't going to cut off half of your artwork when you send it off to get published. So yeah, that's about it. Play around with the tools. You know, I know that it was really just that first example that we went over where I showed you the cutting tool and the merging tool for the gutters, but there's some really powerful stuff there, and you'll be surprised by just how much flexibility you've got to play around with. Until next time, my friends, keep on drawing, keep on creating, and I'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye for now. Just to wrap this up, thank you so much, Eric. Sorry, Eric, not Erica. Sorry, my lady is called Erica. I apologize for that. That was a total accident. Clayton is no gatekeeper, and that will make us stay. No, I try not to be. I try to make it fair. I try to make it so that the Academy can run and I can still eat and keep the lights on at the same time. That's really the bar for me. I accepted a long time ago that I was never going to be rich or a millionaire. But as long as I can still draw, that's and also live, that's all I really care about. Comics Legend says, "Thank you, Clayton. Hope this will accelerate comic book making for everyone." Me too, man. Me too. I hope it raises the bar and the quality of everyone's comic book pages. Thanks so much, Eric. Appreciate you, man. Bye-bye, everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure.